Today, we will be discussing the top 10 transnational organized crime groups and how their illegal activity and criminal acts affect American citizens and society. Defined by our FBI, transnational organized crime groups are self-perpetuating associations of individuals who operate, wholly or in part, by illegal means and irrespective of geography. Ignoring national borders, transnational organized crime groups utilize violence, corruption, and even terrorism for political gain, religious gain, or the 3 Ps: power, position, and profit. The Organized Crime Control Act of 1970 defines organized crimes as racketeering, which includes state crimes and federal crimes. In the United States, transnational organized crime groups engage in these illegal activities and criminal acts in order to gain power, position, and profit, disrupting the structure of American society. The Ku Klux Klan is a racist white supremacy group that first arose in the South after the Civil War. They were against any and all advancements of African Americans, from Reconstruction to the Civil Rights Movement. The Ku Klux Klan mainly committed murders, especially by lynching African Americans. Most infamous was the murder of Emmett Till, a 14-year-old boy from Chicago who was accused of whistling at a white woman. His open casket funeral shed a light on Jim Crow laws and segregation in America, leading to the passage of important civil rights acts. The Ku Klux Klan didn't just target African Americans, however, for they expanded their hatred towards Catholics, Jews, and immigrants. With a burning cross as their symbol, the Ku Klux Klan members began to protest, rally, and march against the presence of everyday American citizens. With their initial foundation in the 1940s, the Latin Kings were supposed to preserve and promote Hispanic culture, but soon became one of the most prominent gangs in America. Trafficking drugs such as cocaine and heroin became their main source of income. Drug life enticed Latino youth to join the gang, and with the once a king, always a king mentality, membership increased. With the Latin Kings growing and expanding, the sale and distribution of drugs continued to run rampant across the United States. Even incarceration did not stop the Latin Kings from controlling their gang. They extort and bribe officials of correctional facilities, corrupting many prison systems in America. Arguably the most notorious gang rivalry in the United States, the Bloods and Crips saw a rise of gang culture in America. After the decline of the Black Panther Party, both were founded in the early 1970s to show solidarity against racial injustice, but soon became involved in crimes such as robbery, prostitution, and murder. Similar to the Latin Kings, drug trafficking was their main source of income. Dealing was an easy way to make a quick buck, enticing African American youth from low-income communities in California to join each gang. Being so close to each other, Bloods and Crips had violent encounters to assert their dominance over the other. However, former members have left each gang to work together in Unity One, a private organization to transform gang members into productive citizens. Despite these efforts, the rivalry violence between the Bloods and Crips have taken more than 15,000 lives. In 1906, the American Medical Association approved heroin for general use, but this freedom saw a rise in drug addicts in America. With 94% of crimes being committed by heroin addicts, the drug was outlawed for both medical and illicit use, and the League of Nations began to control heroin. The Union Corse, a French transnational organized crime group, exploited these new bans and regulations, resulting in the French Connection. Beginning in the 1930s, Turkish heroin labs sent unrefined heroin to Corsica and Marseille, France, to be refined before being sent to the United States. The Second World War halted this process, but only once the war was over, continued until the 1970s, when mastermind of the French Connection, Marcel Francisci, was assassinated in Paris, France. Once the French Connection ended in the 1970s, the Sicilian Mafia and American Mafia continued to distribute drugs. In order to conceal their crimes, they used various pizza parlors as their fronts and laundered the money in several banks. From the years 1975 to 1984, the enterprise imported $1.65 billion worth of heroin into America. The FBI was able to build a case against them for about a year using wiretaps, witnesses, documents, and undercover agent Joseph D. Pistone. The case was taken to the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York and became known as the Pizza Connection Trial. The 17-month-long case resulted in 18 convictions, including Gaetano Badalamenti, former boss of the Sicilian Mafia. After the Castellamarese War, Salvatore Maranzano came out on top as the capo di tutti capi, or boss of all bosses, of the 5 families in New York. Most cities had 1 crime family, but in New York there were 5. Maranzano, Profaci, Mangano, Luciano, and Gagliano. Unhappy with Maranzano, Charles Lucky Luciano had him assassinated and founded the Commission. This government helped Luciano oversee mafia activity within the 5 families, as well as the Chicago Outfit and the Buffalo crime family. With this new national crime syndicate, Luciano controlled aspects of narcotics, prostitution, bootlegging, loan sharking, and labor union rackets in America. Despite his ultimate deportation to Sicily, the new 5 families, Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese, Colombo, and Bonanno, still exist today, continuing Luciano's legacy, keeping New York City as America's organized crime capital. In the 1920s, Prohibition saw the rise of organized crime groups in America. Most notorious is the Chicago Outfit, led by Al Capone or Scarface. The 18th Amendment made the sale and distribution of alcoholic beverages illegal in America, which gave rise to new crimes. Most mafias settled down and engaged in prostitution, loan sharking, and gambling, but now found profit in bootlegging or smuggling alcohol. As time went on, America realized how much more damage than good Prohibition was causing, especially with the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. In 1924, 4 of Al Capone's henchmen dressed up as police officers and shot 7 henchmen of Bugs Moran, Capone's rival. This massacre opened the eyes of the American people to see how mobsters and gangsters profited off of Prohibition. Al Capone was soon convicted to 11 years in federal prison for tax evasion, but the violence, corruption, and soon economic depression continued. As FDR was soon elected into office, the 21st Amendment was passed, repealing the 18th Amendment and ending Prohibition. Beginning in the 1970s, the Medellin Cartel was founded by Pablo Escobar as a smuggling business that turned into a cocaine trafficking empire. At their peak, the Medellin Cartel smuggled over 600 pounds of cocaine into the U.S., bringing in about $60 million in daily profit. In the 1980s, Escobar tried to become a politician by committing terroristic attacks against the Colombian government. DEA intervention resulted in his death in 1993, along with the fall of the Medellin Cartel, but the Cali Cartel saw this as an opportunity to step in. At their peak, in the mid-1990s, the Cali Cartel was responsible for over 80% of the cocaine in the world. The DEA worked hard to take down the Cali Cartel, who was becoming a powerhouse in the cocaine industry. In fact, in the year 1991, law enforcement agencies seized 67 tons of cocaine in the U.S., 75% originating from the Cali Cartel. With the 1980s crack epidemic in America, the Medellin and Cali Cartel became public enemy number 1, and with the 2006 extradition of the Rodriguez brothers, the 4 gentlemen of Cali were either killed or captured. Founded in the late 1970s, the Guadalajara cartel was controlled by Miguel Ángel Felix Gallardo, Rafael Garo Quintero, and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, or Don Neto. They also controlled plazas in Tijuana, Sinaloa, and Juarez, which would eventually become their own cartels. Before getting into Colombian cocaine, they first began with marijuana. Promoted as sin semilla or seedless, this marijuana was a more powerful and high-quality product that brought high prices in the American market. But as the demand changed from marijuana to cocaine, the supply from Guadalajara changed. Gallardo's relationship with the Cali cartel was tempestuous, especially when in 1985, DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered at 881 Lope de Vega. Operation Leyenda took way and found the 3 founders of the Guadalajara cartel involved. At the same time, First Lady Nancy Reagan launched the Just Say No campaign to encourage children to turn away from drugs. Programs such as DARE still exist today in efforts to fight the war on drugs. Al-Qaeda is an Islamic transnational terrorist organization founded by Osama bin Laden in 1988. They have merged with other terrorist groups, including Egypt's Islamic Jihad, to declare a holy war against the United States of America. The organization establishes training camps for paramilitary skills and terrorist attacks. Such terrorist attacks include the bombings on multiple U.S. embassies in Africa and bombing of the USS Cole in Yemen. None more infamous than the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001, however. 19 members of the Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 commercial airplanes, crashing 2 into each of the Twin Towers, 1 in the Pentagon, and the last in a field in Pennsylvania. Thanks to the bravery of the passengers on the final airline, the terrorists were not able to reach their intended target of Washington, D.C. Soon after 9/11, drastic changes were imposed, especially with airport security, now known as TSA. It was now harder to fly in or out of the U.S., but it all ensured that 9/11 would never happen again. Within one day, Al-Qaeda managed to kill 2,997 people and changed American life forever.